So we have a fair bit to do. So let's do it. So registration is done. We can register, but that's really only one part. We need to build a login page. So what I'm going to do is go to my register ASPX. I'm going to copy pretty much everything except the heading. So we'll have our label, I'll copy my username, password, and then we'll get rid of the confirm box and my button.
Do we need the error message as well?
Yeah, we'll want the error because if there's a login error, we'll want to be able to print that. So I'm going to copy all of that. And I'm going to make a new page called login. So a new web form called login that uses our master page. I'll paste all of that into my content block. We can get rid of our third div here, so our fourth one. The whole confirm section we don't need. That would be unbelievably annoying to have to confirm your password to log in. I'm going to change my button ID to BTN login. And I'm going to take out the event handler and then recreate it. So I want to create a new event on click. And the text of the button can say login. And up at the top, I'll just use an H1 tag. So we still have our LBL status, TXT username, TXT password. I've renamed the button to BTN login and rebuilt my event handler.
What's the login control of the toolbox? Can you use it or? If you go down to like validation, whatever it is, or login, yeah, there's an actual login control which gives you username and password. That's cool.
Never used it. I have no idea. Today won't be the day that I'd use it. So I'm just scrolling through. So they're just showing us the stuff we already did. This is using their local database with the register page, how it creates these tables for us. So we've got a login page now. Doesn't do anything, it just shows a form. Okay, so when I click, nothing really happens yet. So we're going to need to add some new packages to the solution. This is where we're going to need the Owen middleware. So Patrick, any block in green, just add your name to it. So we need to go back to our package manager, and we're going to search for, I'm going to go back to Solution Explorer, go back to the NuGet package manager, and I want to search for identity.owen. So that'll bring up this one. Jay, if you would like it in Korean, they have a Korean package for you. Here.
Microsoft ASP.NET.
Yep, so just the first one.
What if I don't agree to the terms?
So this adds a whole bunch of support packages. So it depends on the identity core, also on Owen security, cookies, and OAuth. So these are all dependencies that have been installed. There's one more we want. If you search for system web, we're going to get this one, microsoft.owen.host.systemweb. We want to install this one too. So this is Owen for a web-based application, because Owen will work on any platform. It's not web only. So be sure you install that.
What? Behaviors of proteins. Oh, my God.
So then you'll see that it's installed. So now we should have all the packages that we need. If I go back to my directory and check it now, I should have, yeah, it was 31.8. The starter class, it's now 41.1 with all the additional packages. Okay. So when I go into the packages subfolder, there's everything we've installed, basically, and any dependencies. Okay. If we look at lesson 9, where we left off last week, the only thing we had were those two. The link for doing the sorting and entity framework. Okay, so then we can close the package manager. This is going to add some code to our web.config file. If you get this message, just say yes to all. We want to save the changes and reload it. So if I open up web.config now, I think it added this. Oh, sorry, down here. In the runtime, it added this assembly identity for Microsoft Owen.
I'm saying no assembly found for Owen.
Did you agree to the turn?
Yeah.
Did you recompile?
Well, I was just after running it, so I assumed.
Did you press yes to all?
Yeah.
Would you say no? I don't know about that.
So I don't accept this one.
I ain't about that.
Yeah, it's probably because you said no, you didn't accept.
No, I did accept. Brad.
I'll have a look in a minute, Ben. So those are all the packages we need. When we install the Owen package, it also adds a new type of item to the Visual Studio item template. So there's an item called an Owen startup class. So this is a configuration used by the Owen middleware. So what we want to do is add a new item that's of type Owen startup class. So in my project, I'm going to say add new item. And it should be in the web section. This list is alphabetical. So I'm going to choose Owen startup class. By default, Visual Studio is going to want to call it startup1.cs. Just take out the 1. We'll just call this file startup.cs.
It's under web?
Yep.
Here we go, yeah. So, start with
So just call it startup.cs. So the package Owen will look, the middleware will look for a class with this name. So just add that to your solution. So it's similar to a regular class file. The only thing that's different is that it specifies it's using the Owen startup assembly. It's a particular type of class. It's not just a generic class, it's a strongly typed class. And it has a built-in configuration method here. We need to add these two references in yellow. So we need to reference the identity package, and we need to reference the Owen security.cookies. So we're going to add those two lines in yellow.
And this is in our startup.cs?
Yep. So that's in the startup.cs. So we'll add identity and owen.security.cookies. So this is a generic class. It doesn't have to be for web only, so we're going to make it specific that this is web, and we need to use cookies. And then they've given us 3 lines here. Basically, all this says is we're enabling cookie authentication. and we're supplying a default login path. Notice in my Monday solution, right, when I try and go to any directory, any page, without logging in, it automatically redirects me here. So in our configuration, that's what this code is doing. For our application, use cookies and set the default login path. So we're going to use our login page as the default path. So just grab that section in yellow inside the configuration method. So we're going to paste it in here. So we're going to use the default, which is an application cookie. Our other options are an external cookie or a two-factor cookie. If you know what a two-factor cookie is, maybe you could explain it to me because I have no idea. The other thing we want to change is the path. Rather than this being /login, we need to, our page is lowercase, and we need to put in the extension. If we just go to /login, we're going to get an error. We need to specify the extension. I'm going to get a 404 here.
That's the same error.
Yeah. Ben, the reason I think is because you tried to run it without the configuration class. Now that you have this, if you recompile, it should work. I haven't recompiled, that's why I got the error. If you add the Owen package, it's looking for that startup file. If you don't, if you installed the package and you don't have the startup, it's kind of the sound of one hand clapping.
Okay, sure. That's a good sound.
Yeah.
Right? If I go here now, so I got 404 because I didn't provide the extension. Okay. So now any page we try and go to, if we block the user, if we block anonymous users, it'll automatically, the startup class will automatically redirect the user back to our root folder and then the login page inside of the root. So we want to include the leading slash, meaning wherever they are in the application, go back to the root. The login page is not relative to where the user is currently. It's always got to go back to the root, which is what that leading slash will do.
You don't need to put this code like what we put in PHP, like every page.
No. I'll show you how we do it. It's really, really easy. Much easier. On PHP, yeah, we had to put that check on every page. We don't have to do it with this. Okay. So our next task, we've got a login form, but our login form, there's no code in the back. So in our login.aspx.cs, we're going to need to add 3 references. We need to reference the identity package, reference identity any framework. We also need to reference the Owen package. Okay? So these 3 references here, identity, entity framework, and Owen security, those all need to get referenced in our login page. Oh, sorry, wait a minute. This is on our register page. Let's look for a minute. So this is, they've given us a modified version of the register. These lines are all the same, but what they've done here instead, when a user signs up, is actually log them in as well. So we could do this. So once a user's registered, they're automatically logged in. Now, for some strange reason in the tutorial, this code signs them in. So we create an existing Owen context. We say create an identity. We call sign in, which logs them in, and then it still takes them to log in. Well, this logging them in here is pointless. There's no reason to send them to the login page. This already does the login.
What would happen if you tried to log in?
Well, you know what? I think the way they've done it this way, it's because on their login page, the way they've built the login page, is the login serves both as a login and a logout. So if you're logged in, it says welcome in your username, and then it has logout. I don't think we need to do that. We'll take the user off to a main menu page.
Wouldn't that login page also determine if they're admin and redirect them?
It could. In this tutorial, it doesn't, but yes, it could do that. So what we'll do, we're going to use most of this code on our register page. But what we'll build, let's build a main menu page that a user will get taken to after they sign in. Kind of like you log into Blackboard, you get a splash page with links taking you to different places.
Is there any code for the login button yet?
Not yet. Sorry, got ahead of myself. So let's make a new form with master page. I'll call it main menu.
Main menu that
.rich. So we'll just put links on here so the user can get to any of the private pages in the site. No, I haven't yet. We'll build this page for, we may as well build the page, and then we'll go back to register, and we'll add the code to take a user here when they sign up. So maybe on here I'll put on. So I'll put a link into our list page and a link into our add page. Oops. So I'll make 3 sections, a department section, courses, and students.
Departments and departments.
So I just pasted that first section, and I'll rename it in my second section wherever I've got a reference to course. To department, I'll make it course, and in the third section.
Can you fire that on?
Fire it out. Just fire it up there.
Stop typing.
You didn't take typing in high school?
Did you take typing in high school?
You bet I did. Grade 12, Miss McBride's class was the most useful class I took in high school.
Shots fired at high school.
Yes, I can dump it online for you, because I'm feeling in such a generous mood.
That's really nice of you, Rich.
Yeah.
After I typed it all.
So kind.
I was gonna type the last sentence, but I'm just no way.
I could be done, but I want to wait.
The last one I think is always taking high rate.
Jake, I'll show you the logo.
It's like, it's
Okay.
using what's already available.
If you are a solitary finger typist, it's now on Blackboard.
Destroy. It's search and destroy. Fingers. If you search with one finger, you destroy that key. It's pretty simple.
So you really only have to make one section and then just copy and paste it
Just try to look for the key.
and change the words. So once a user registers, we want to sign them in and take them to this page.
Sam. Figure it out.
Sam, will you search and destroy?
Figure it out.
Sounds like it.
Okay, so we already copy and pasted that code for the,
Okay, so your page will look something like this. So we have links.
Down.
I'm into that.
So both when somebody signs up, as well as when they log in, if they're successful, this is the page they should get. This is like our private homepage. So just make sure you can load your page, because we'll want to take the user here after they sign up. So on our register page, we already have these two references. If we're also going to want to let a user, we're going to sign a user in automatically when they register, then we also need to reference, Microsoft.owen.security. Yeah. So we're going to add line 11 so that we can also log somebody in when they sign up. Now, if you wanted to, you could skip this step. We could simply redirect them to the login page and make them log in there.
Yeah.
Up to you how you want your application to work. I'm going to make mine that once you sign up, you're logged in. So add the reference to Microsoft.owen.security. So now I'm going to comment out those two lines rather than just printing that the user was created and making the label nice and green. Just for Patrick. Now what we're going to do is copy those lines in the results succeeded section. So we're getting the security context, we're creating an identity with a cookie, and we're signing the user in. And then we're going to redirect not to the login page, but we're going to redirect to the main menu page instead. So I'm just going to copy those lines.
I don't have to get Owen context.
If you, then you're missing the reference at the top.
Microsoft.owen.
.security.
I don't have it. I had it. It's not working. Maybe I'll compile it.
Do you install Owen?
So on my redirect instead, I'm going to redirect to main menu.aspx. So let's try and create a new account and make sure that it takes us here. So the only thing I changed is the URL we're directing to. So we'll go back to our register page. Yeah, we'd have to build the page for that, Brad. So now when I register,
Rich, I don't have Owen context.
it creates my account and I get taken to the menu.
No, system.
Can you believe it?
Can't believe it's not butter.
So now we should be able to add our login code as well. So the next step walks us through building a login form. Well, we already have a login form. We need the same three references for login: identity, entity framework, and Owen security. So let's add those three references to the login page. So we've got the same references on login and logout. Sorry, on login and register. And now we can write our click event handler for our login button. So the way their login works is they have both a login form as well as like a welcome if you're already logged in. We don't need that, so we're not going to do anything on page load. We're just going to go down to their sign in method. Now they've also included sign out here. We're going to build that as a separate page with a link in the header, rather than making the user go back to the login page first and then click log out. That's what their tutorial does. I think that's silly. So in sign in, we basically want all of this code. So it creates, again, a new user store, new manager, and the user manager has a find method that will take the text from the username and take the password from the password box. And it will either return, if that user's found, it will return a valid user object. So if that's the case, we create the cookie and call sign in. If our user manager.find doesn't find that credential match, it just returns a null.
Are we copying this method to our...
Yeah, so we already have the click method, but these lines basically do our handling for us. We'll have to make a couple changes. What things should we be changing on here?
All the red stuff.
Okay.
Stuff needs to be changed.
All the red stuff needs to be changed, yep.
Nice. Redirect.
The redirect should be changed to what?
Here, menu.
Yep, so once we sign them in, and what about this? Yeah, let's get rid of it. We don't have a login status section, so we can get rid of that line. And again, in our user manager class, so we've got find, we've got all these different find methods we can call. So the default find method takes two parameters, the overloaded version, the username and password. So it will returns a user with the specified username and password, or it returns null if we don't find that user. So now we can try our login page.
I guess I'm missing some kind of reference. The .authenticate.
Did you build? And did you reference?
I referenced Owen.security.
You might be missing this one.
.system.web.
Not system.web, microsoft.owen.host.systemweb.
Yeah, I got that one.
Okay, do you see any others you're missing? Here, so there's this one, these 5 that say Owen, so there are 7 Owen references. You need all of those.
Nice.
I'll have to look, Brad.
Works real good.
So if I put in an invalid login, tells me my login's no good.
Hey, Redhead, I got an error. You know, authenticate too. It worked.
So if I put in valid credentials, I get my main menu page.
No, it's just in the glove box.
Okay. So we can sign up, we can log in, and our login seems to work, tells us we need to add logout, and then we need to work on, I mean, all our pages are still public. So we need to secure the pages, And we also want to make our menu dynamic. We basically want two versions of our nav bar, a public version and a private version, and we'll toggle it depending on if the user is authenticated or not. So in the tutorial, below their sign-in code, here's their sign-out code. It's pretty straightforward. Get the current context, and this time instead of Authentication Manager sign-in, we call sign-out and then we redirect. So we're going to build a logout page that will basically run the code that's here.
Additional keyword not.
So let's add, it doesn't really matter whether this page has a master page or not. It's never going to be visible. I'll use the master page anyway. I'll just call it logout. We don't have to do anything in the HTML here. This is an invisible page. We can just go into the code window. Now we'll need to make references to Owen because we need to call the Authentication Manager sign-out method. That Authentication Manager class is part of the Owen security. So we still need the same three references in order to handle logout. So we'll use Microsoft.asp.NET Identity. So we'll make reference to those three packages one more time. And now I'll grab those 3 lines out of the tutorial that connects to the current user.
We still gonna redirect back to login and login.
Oops.
Of course. Well, it's not necessarily the homepage. I think what happens when you sign up is like MSN.
So we'll redirect to login.
Facebook doesn't have like another page that takes that login.
So it basically, the description in the sign out method talks to our middleware and it revokes any identity claim. So we're releasing from memory.
Let's go to your Sam. Okay. Yeah, really, Sam. Come on, man.
You can come up and teach the rest of the class if you like.
I'm sorry, I'm talking to Ty here. What?
So it will remove any claims, anything we have. It will also remove any permissions about that user, and they become anonymous again. One too many brackets. So we just connect to the current context, sign the user out, redirect them back to login. If you wanted to redirect them to the default page, you could, because we do have that as our home page instead. You could decide where you want them to go. Let me click sign out. Now we haven't added a link to it yet, but if I go to log out, so it does kick me back to login. Now, whether I'm actually logged out or not, we don't know yet because all our pages are still public. There's no way of actually being able to tell yet whether I'm logged in or logged out. Right? I can still go anywhere, and all of these pages still load.
Shame. Did we ask you to talk there, Brad? Yeah. Okay.
And this is the one thing that they failed to do in the tutorial, is they didn't actually show us how we control access to a particular page. This is really easy. So let's go to our web.config. So let's say we want to make that main menu private. We can do this, we can either secure a subfolder or we can secure individual pages. For starters, I'll show you how to secure just one page. And then to make it easier, what we should do is take all of the pages that should be private, put those in a folder, and we'll just secure the folder instead.
The one below runtime?
So down at the bottom, just above the configuration, if we put in a location tag and say path equals main menu.aspx. So we're setting up configuration just for this one file. If we add a system.web tag, we've got rules, and in here there's an authorization tag. So we've got, within here, we've got options. We have allow or deny. So what we want is to use the deny. And we can either deny certain users or we can deny certain roles. So we're going to deny users question mark. Question mark is anybody who's not authenticated. We don't even have to recompile. The web.config is just an XML file. It's not server-side code, so it doesn't affect our DLL. So I've logged out. Now if I try to go to my main menu, our startup class kicks in, and it takes us to our default path. If I log back in,
Oh yeah, it works.
now our menu is going to be available.
It's like 300 times.
Now, if we have a big site specifying every private file and who can access it in web.config gets big, right? It's not very scalable to manage it this way. So what we'd be better off doing is making an admin subfolder or a private subfolder, moving all of our private pages in there, and then we can secure just that folder. So that way, every time we add new pages, if they're private, we just save them in that folder instead. They're automatically private. We don't have to add that check. Bomik, that's what you're asking, right? We don't have to add that check on every page. So let's do it. Let's do this through the folder instead. We'll secure all those pages, then the last thing we have to do is make our two versions of our nav bar. So I'm going to right-click my project, and I'm going to add a new folder, which I will call admin. So what I want to do is move courses, departments, main menu, and the students pages. I want to move all of those inside of the admin folder. Users should have to log in to get to any of those. So I'm going to move departments, courses, student, and main menu, and students. So now the only public pages are default, login, logout, and register. Those are the only pages an anonymous user can access.
Oh, that's right.
Now, if you have other pages from your lab, like you may have a couple more pages, you may have a student singular page, put it in the admin. Anything to do with managing the database tables should be in the admin folder. So, yeah. So default, login, logout, and register, they're public. Any other pages you've made should be in the admin folder.
Nice.
So now in web.config, rather than specifying my path as an individual file, I'm just going to specify my path as the admin folder. So any anonymous users are prevented from accessing any file in that folder. Now you will need to rebuild. So just change the path to say admin. I'm going to log out again. So now I'm going to try to go, remember all our pages are inside the admin folder, so if I try and load admin/courses.aspx, it should keep me on the login page,
Oh, error in server application.
but we'll see the redirect, right? It tried to go here, but the security took me to login. If I log in,
Gives me a 404 and it doesn't redirect me.
We gotta change. Yeah, change the
Where?
master.
right, we need to change the path on login. What do we have to do? Because where does the main menu
Dot,
file?
slash.
In.
Yeah, now the main menu is inside the admin subfolder. So on our register page
Can't go anywhere.
and on our login page, we're going to need to put the admin subfolder in front because main menu is not in the root anymore. Right? Main menu is in a subfolder.
Slash admin slash versus admin slash.
It doesn't matter in this case because register and login are in the root anyway.
Right.
So same here. We need to prefix, whoops, main menu with admin slash. So once they log in, we're taking the user into the admin folder.
This is, wait, sorry, main menu login?
So both login and register, both of them redirect to main menu. So we need to prefix main menu with admin slash.
And then anything else we can change, like the redirect to the, when we redirect to the login, we need to have like dot dot slash whatever, don't we?
We'll get there.
We'll get there.
Okay. So now when I log in, it takes me into the admin folder. Now I can go to my courses page because I'm logged in. As soon as I log out, I'm not going to be able to get into any page in the admin folder. So I log out. Actually, just do this. So if I grab that URL and try going, let's say in Chrome, I'm going to get kicked back to login page. I've got an active session in Firefox. But not in Chrome. I try and go here in Chrome, kicks me back to login, doesn't know who I am.
Using cookies, right? What happens if someone has them disabled or they're using something that doesn't have?
They're probably not going to be able to log in or register without cookies.
Would there be some kind of way around it for us as a program?
Use PHP sessions, use.
There is, Tyler, but I'd have to think about how you would do it if their cookies are disabled.
Can you direct them to a page, please enable cookies if you want?
That would be the best thing, is use JavaScript to detect whether the cookie's there or not, and tell them if they want to use the site, they'll need to enable it. So we need to put in a logout link, and then we also need to put in register and login links and decide which set of links we should show and which ones we should hide, depending on whether the user's logged in or logged out.
So the links are working without having to change the path.
Yeah, because once we log in, let me log out again,
So for
Patrick.
example, if
I'll explain why. We're going to have to change them, though.
Yeah,
Okay, right?
because it brings us into the admin folder.
Right. We're in the admin folder, and these links are relative.
So now if you click Contoso University, it's going to break.
Yep. Right. We'll have to change that because if we open up our master page, all of the paths are relative, right? So open up the master page. We're going to need to make those changes and add our other links. So in front of default, if we always want it to go back to the home, to the root, we just need a leading slash. You don't need dot dot slash. Leading slash means go back to the root and start there. we should probably change the paths here as well, because a user could log in, they're in the admin site, but then they go click on home, and then those paths are wrong. So again, in front of these should now have /admin in front of them, right? Start at the root folder and go into the admin folder each time. And now we need 3 other links. Actually, we need 4 other links. The first one can go to register. The second one can go to login. Whoops, and that should be /register. Just to be sure. Our second link will go to login, which is in the root. We're also going to add a link to the main menu. And lastly, at the end, we should add a logout link. And it's in the root folder, so we'll prefix that with a leading /. So the first 2 links and the last link are in the root, and our other 4 are all inside the admin subfolder.
Register.
And by using that leading /, it means the paths are no longer relative. We're going to start in the root folder each time. So if we load the nav bar now, we're going to have too many links. We're going to have 7 links. We don't want all 7 to show up. In effect, this is going to be the public nav, and this is going to be the private nav. So we can write a bit of code to show or hide, show one set of links and hide the other set. Right now it'll look like this. Okay. So now we've got everything. I should probably test each link, make sure that they work. So they all still go where they're supposed to, because we're starting at the root each time. So we only have one other small thing to do, which is decide whether we're showing these 2 or whether we're showing those 5. So we'll use a small server control, and then we'll just write some logic. Well, where? Where would it make sense to be checking which set of links to display? Yeah, on the master page, and what event on the master page would make sense? Yeah, so when the master page loads, we're going to check whether the user's authenticated, yes or no. If they're authenticated, we'll show this, and if they're not, we'll show that. So I'm just going to wrap these. There's a new ASP control we haven't used called an ASP placeholder. It doesn't have any visual representation, just lets us nest other controls inside. So I'll call this PLH for placeholder public. Run at equals server. And I'll just put my public links inside of this. Then I'll put a second ASP placeholder around the second set of links. I'll call it placeholder private. And then on page load, we can just show one and hide the other one.
Right on. All right.
So the placeholder tag itself doesn't create any HTML. So we've got two. If I save and refresh the page, you won't notice anything different. It will look exactly the same so far. So now we just need to add some logic on page load. So if we view the code, so determine which nav to show. So we'll just have an if, else. So here's how we can check if the user's logged in. We use the HTTP context dot current. That means the currently active session. And the session has a user property. The user property has an identity. It also has an is-in-role. So this is how we could check permissions. So user.isInRole, if we wanted to check whether they were in an admin role, we just say isInRole admin, and that would give us a Boolean. It would tell us whether this user is in that role. In this case, we want identity dot, and the identity object has a name property, so we could get the username at any point. It also has an isAuthenticated method, an isAuthenticated property. So if, this basically means if they're logged in. We don't need it to create a session. In PHP, we manually had to create a session variable, and we were checking if that session variable was empty. It's built into the .NET framework. This doesn't even use this is from .NET 1. This is even before the ASP.NET Identity package. Notice we didn't need to make any references in order to access this. So if they're authenticated, we'll set the public to false, and we'll set the private nav to true. And if they're not authenticated, we'll make public true and private false. So if we wanted to check, I'll just show you. Let's say you have different roles. You have an admin user and some other kind. If we wanted to check, you just type http context.current.user.isInRole, let's say admin. And that will just give you a Boolean which you can evaluate. So you can check any role based on the name. We're just doing authentication, not authorization. So now I'll click on home. I should still be logged in, so it hides those public links. As soon as I log out, public links show up, the private ones are hidden.
Can you go back to your site master?
Yep. So as soon as I log in, public nav goes away, private nav shows up.
What are my placeholders normally does?
Make sure you give them run at equals server.
Yeah.
Why is it showing up?
You didn't self-close the tag, did you? Because it needs to have a closing tag with these things in between.
No, I've got the closing tag too.
Are you not now patching? Give passwords. Give something.
Yeah, it says the name PLH public does not exist in the
Yeah, I have the same thing.
I compiled it, I tried closing those two, you don't come out. Same ID.
Get die or try and get it.
I'll come back and look in a second.
I have the same thing.
Okay. And you compiled as well, Ben? You still get the same issue? So in your assignment, basically what I'm looking for is something similar to what you implemented today. Okay? There can be a public splash page and the ability to sign up and log in. Beyond that, everything else should be private. So the easiest way to do it is use a private folder and just secure that folder in web.config by denying anonymous user access. Okay. The login and register, you'll need those. You'll need all of the NuGet packages, and you'll also need the startup class, as well as your connection in your web.config called default connection. Okay, so you'll need all of these pieces. So the tutorial link is on Blackboard. I will put my files up to GitHub, as well as the video walkthrough will be on YouTube. So you should have plenty of resources to be able to implement this in your assignment.
Thanks, Rich.
All right.